What's going on, guys? I hope you are doing well. In this video, we are going to talk about specifically what the implications are for Saudi Arabia owning 67% of Lucid Motors. We're going to talk about potential negative impacts of this as well as potential positives, because I think there is a good mix of both, and then I'll be giving you guys my overall opinion. So I do think this video is very, very important. I've spent a long time putting this together, but I cannot take all the credit for this. I didn't even think about making this video. This was really brought to me by this comment by the username Al Paula. He says, "Hey man, please make a video on the SEC filing that says Lucid will be owned 62% by the Saudi private investment fund and how Lucid will be considered a NASDAQ controlled company. Also about the implications of Lucid being majority owned by Saudi." So this is a great video, or a great topic to make a total video on, or a whole video on, because there's a lot to unpack. So without any further ado, hit that like button for me, show me some love, and help push this video out to every Lucid Motors shareholder that needs to know this, because it is not easily accessed information. Like I said, this has took a long time to get my hands on some of this wordage. So we're going to first start off with what a NASDAQ listed company is, and then go into how much they own and everything else. But it says, what is a controlled company NASDAQ? A controlled company is a company of which more than 50% of the voting power is held by an individual group or another company. For purposes of this provision, NASDAQ interprets a group as shareholders that have publicly filed a notice that they are acting as a group. Now, that is not exactly what is going on, but I did want to address what he said in the comment of being considered a NASDAQ controlled company. Now, let's get into majority shareholder rights and what your specific rights are if you do own over 51% of a company. It says, what is considered majority ownership? I'll start with this. A majority shareholder is a person or entity that owns or controls more than 50% of a company's outstanding shares. As a majority shareholder, a person or operating entity has a significant amount of influence over the company, especially if their shares are voting shares. That's where it gets very interesting, because it's unclear if these are voting shares or if they are not voting shares, and that's where a lot of these implications will come into effect, if this is a negative or a positive thing. But for all sakes concerned in this video, we are gonna acknowledge them as if they are voting shares, because they say they're not usually voting shares, but from what I have seen, they usually have a huge pull and the say-so in the company. But it says, understanding the majority shareholders' rights. Majority shareholders typically receive special privileges or rights. It usually depends on the type of stock the shareholder owns. Holders of common stock, because the stocks have no fixed value, are generally the last to receive benefits or payouts and are less likely to have the same privileges that preferred stock shareholders have. Preferred stock is considered more valuable, as preferred shareholders occupy a higher position in terms of dividends and in the event of company liquidation. However, preferred stock does not typically carry voting rights, thus it is rare for a preferred shareholder to be a majority shareholder, although it is practically speaking possible. Now, that is where I've had a hard time trying to actually verify if they are or not. So like I said, throughout this video, we're just going to assume they are. If they're not, they're not. Let me know down below if you guys could find anything. I could not find anything on this, and it was very surprising. I went through all these SEC filings and, searched through the filings with keywords, and I could not find anything. So I think it's yet to actually be known. But says majority shareholders' rights and privileges. Majority shareholders have the benefit of voting and electing privileges. Again, it means that they have a say in directions the company decides to take. Majority shareholders are consistently updated about how the company is performing, and if they are unhappy, they can request an election for new board members. It is also important to note that shareholders are not responsible for a company's failure or insolvency. Any personal assets a majority shareholder holds outside the company are at risk. The primary issue is that if a company has sizable financial obligations, namely outstanding debts, shareholders won't receive any cash, assets, or dividends until the company has resolved all of its liabilities. And yeah, that's going to be the case. If you have $10 billion worth of liabilities or debt, your company's worth $10 billion, they're going to repay the debt because that has to be repaid, and then you wouldn't get anything. So that is pretty straightforward. That's not going to happen in the case of Lucid Motors. If it does, I guess we're all screwed, right? Simplest way to put that. Now, let's talk about the specific positives and the negatives I could see coming from this. And one very, very positive that I do want to point out as well is Saudi Arabia has a lot of money, and they obviously, right, they have a lot of oil money, and they caught the oil boom. Now they want to catch the EV boom. So it is in their best interest to push Lucid Motors to be the best company it could possibly be. Now, we do have this right here where they are trying to build a factory in Saudi Arabia, and I will just read only the quotes that Lucid Motors did give. And it says, Lucid Motors is committed to a presence in the Middle East and in Saudi Arabia in particular, and we are working closely with our partners at the Public Investment Fund to accelerate the adoption and global availability of Lucid's exclusive electric vehicle and sustainability technologies. The company confirmed to Green Car Reports, our focus continues to be bringing the Lucid Air to production in the spring of this year. Obviously, that did not happen, but I think it's likely we're going to see a lot of factories being built in, obviously, Saudi Arabia, but we're going to see other factories being built around that region, ultimately giving us a two-side front per se, right? It'll be easier to get into Europe. Obviously, if they do have a factory over there, that'll speed things up. Less cost for actual transporting these vehicles because they're not cheap to transport over water. And then you're going to get the American segment, which I do think is going to be bigger. And just overall, Saudi Arabia has a clear and obvious benefit to making Lucid Motors be the best company it possibly can. So ultimately, I think it's a good thing. There are some potential downsides though, and obviously the biggest potential downside is Saudi Arabia. If they wanted for whatever reason to sell their stake in Lucid Motors, I don't think that's going to happen. There's so much money on the line and so much potential growth for the company, and they've already been in this since 2018. So I don't think they're gonna sell their stake, but they have 67%. They have a 67% stake in Lucid Motors. So if they did, you're gonna see a lot of liquidity flowing into the stock. You're gonna see the stock would basically collapse, right? If this was done in dark pools, then you wouldn't necessarily see that huge price adjustment, much the same way as people buying or selling any other stock in large orders, billions of dollars worth. That would have an impact on the open markets, but if you take it to the dark pools, you're not going to have that influence on the stock price. Now, I personally don't think that is going to happen just because we're expected to be at $2 billion of revenue per year by 2026. That would give us about an 18.5x from our current share price, taking your value per share currently at about $25 up to about $470 per share in the next 5 years. So I think it's highly unlikely they do that. But although it comes to a certain point where you're gonna sell something, right? You're not gonna sit on this forever, but for a long time. And I do want to point out the fact they did build this factory in a very, very short amount of time. I believe it was about 9 months. They fully built their factory. And that is definitely a good thing. I think Saudi Arabia, they're going to have an incentive to literally make their people work faster when it comes to Saudi Arabia and doing business in the Middle East. And also, we are in very good standing with Saudi Arabia, so I don't think there's any risk of a US-China situation going on again like it was towards the end of Trump's presidency. Even with Biden talking about delisting these companies, that's not getting politics or anything, that's just a fact. They talked about delisting the Chinese companies. If you have been investing in the stock market since then, late 2020, then you know what I'm talking about, and that made a lot of Chinese stocks fall a lot. And trust me, I know this. I was invested in NEO, and it was not a good time at the time to be invested in those companies, as well as Alibaba. I'm invested in quite a few Chinese companies as well, but I don't see that as a huge issue or an issue at all when it does come to Saudi Arabia having a stake in this company, which is much better than some other country like China, right? But something else I also want to point out, which is another positive, is that they do own 67% of the shares. So you're going to see a lot of stability to the stock. You're not really going to see it tank a lot. You could if there was bad news. Obviously, there doesn't have to be a 1-to-1 ratio of buys to sells to see the stock price go up or down. It's really based off of supply and demand and the bid and ask. But I think overall, you're going to see a large level of stability to the stock. So I think it's definitely one of the less risky stocks to own right now. I think Lucid is probably the less risky of most of the stocks I own right now. Obviously, there's some that are safer, but Lucid, as far as hyper growth and what you're getting, I think it is a great stock to own, and I don't really see any downsides in this, besides obviously they're eventually going to sell their shares like we talked about, and it's gonna be a while from now. I think it'll probably be 5, 10, 20 years before they really do sell a large position of the company, unless the company just doesn't perform well. But I don't think that's going to be the case. I think the brand is going to carry them, carry us all to fat tendies. We're gonna get the yacht, we're gonna get the mansion, you're gonna get all these nice things, but it's a time game and it's a game of patience. So that is just my thoughts on what is going on. That is the possible negative and the multiple positives that I do see from this. So overall, I think it's a great thing. That is going to wrap up this video. Hit that like button and subscribe to the channel on your way out, as well as check out the link down below for public. Get up to $70 in your choice of free stock. No deposit necessary. No need to even link a bank account, and you get your stock immediately. Literally, if you did this right now, it would take about 3 minutes time. As well as check out the link down below for Webull. Get 4 free stocks when you deposit $100, each of them potentially worth up to $2,400. That is also free money, guys. Check those out if you have not already. And if you guys want to be part of a great community where I send out all of my buy and sell alerts in real time, check that out. Also, link down below in the description. We have been killing it over there. But until next time, I will see you guys later. Take care.